Hello, comrades. Commissar Bro here today with Year 16, technically Year 15, all that good stuff, of the business strategy game. That's right. Yes, I bet you're all so excited to see how we did. Well, we're going to go through this real quick because we have a lot to talk about. Year 15 was an absolutely wonderful year for us. We saw total revenues go up almost $100 million from year 14 to year 15 being $528 million to $622 million. We also saw the earnings per share go from $10.24 to $12.28. So we basically got to where we were expecting to be last year, which is wonderful. Our stock price has shot up, going up almost $70. That's right, $264.13 is the value of just one of our stocks. Investor expectation, return on equity is also up to 27.2, where it was only 26.2 before. So we saw some. Basically, this is staying about the same, but we are expecting a much higher one this coming up year. Our credit rating is once again an A+, and I imagine it's going to stay that way going into the next year. Hopefully, it continues to do that. We saw the image rating reach 100 for the first time. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, we hit a 100 image rating. I'm pretty excited about that. We also managed to take another dominating share of the market one more time. Back in the 13th year, we had a 24.5% share, and we went all the way down to 21.7% share. Now, we didn't really see an overall loss in revenues. Revenue still increased, but not by much. So it wasn't a very good loss. We lost a huge chunk, almost 3%, 2.8 specifically. But going into year 15, we now have a 26.4% share of the market, which is an absolutely astronomical share of the market. We retook those private label sales that we lost the year prior. We increased our internet sales once again, and we also saw our wholesale sales increase. So if we're looking at specific numbers, internet sales was 1.1 to 1.4, 7.5 to 8.6 on wholesales, and private label 1.355 up to 8.6. So that wasn't right. Sorry, 2.56. I was wondering, that number was a bit too high to make any sense. So basically, looking at the nice little colored bars here, you can see for the most part everything is up and shit's looking good. If we take a look at sales forecast, we can kind of get a more specific idea of what we're doing. I do want to give a little disclaimer, by the way. I'm not actually allowed to give anyone tips on this game. I'm not allowed to tell you what works and what doesn't work. Again, this is merely to show like a journal. This is merely meant to just chronicle how my company does and how I compete against my classmates. If you pick up information by watching the videos, then that's totally you. I cannot specifically help you in any way or tell you how to beat the game. That's up for you to decide. Again, this is an educational experience. Now, again, if you are struggling and you feel like you're having trouble competing against your teammates, then by all means, take some cues from my videos, and I hope they can help you out competing against your classmates. But anyway, so taking a look at our branded sales forecast, looking at our branded shoes right off the bat, we still hold a dominating share of the market. We're going to be seeing a decrease all the way down the market, and there's a reason for that. But to explain it simply here, we're focusing real heavily on kind of slight increases. We can see for the most part, most sales are going to be increasing, not so much in Europe, Africa, not so much in Asia Pacific, and not so much in Latin America. But the internet sales volume we're going to make up for. We're basically going to sell more of our shoes on the internet this year. And it's pretty much going to make up for this loss that's going to be in the wholesale segment. We make more money, ultimately, from the internet sales. We do not offer free shipping, so we're making a pretty nice chunk of change from our internet sales. So with that in mind, I kind of want to keep that the way it is. Now, taking a look at, what should we look at? I mean, that's kind of the big thing here is the branded sales. You can kind of see that. Again, I'm not going to show you celebrity endorsements because I don't want, if my classmates do watch these videos, I don't want them to know exactly how much I'm spending on buying the celebrities that gives me an edge over them. But I'm going to decrease our cost there. Yeah, so we can sit here and fine-tune the numbers as much as we want. I kind of still want to maintain a pretty dominating share. I don't want to lose too much. I don't want to fall below 25 or 24% of the overall market. I mean, again, if there's 7 to 8 companies and we own a quarter of it, 25% of the market, we have a lot of people to sell our shoes to. And with how much plant capacity we have, it's important that we maintain that dominance. So basically, if we look at it, we're supplying almost they're a little over 13,000, or in this case, 13 million pairs of shoes. The overall world is basically, which tab is it under? I always forget. Basically, it's demanding like 50 million pairs of shoes. So a little bit less than that. So with that in mind, it's going to be constantly growing, and it makes sense that we want to maintain as much of that share as we can. If we take a more specific look at the market snapshot here in just North America, you can kind of see where we differ from our opponents. Our opponents are all selling their shoes for far more expensive prices than we are on the internet. First off, if we look, they're selling them for 72, 75, 65, 59, 63, and 75. But we're selling a better quality shoe. We have a quality of 8 stars now. We're selling a better quality shoe at a cheaper price. So we're pretty much just out competing our opponents on that front. And that shows pretty definitely right there in the market share that we control that. We sell the most shoes online in North America, that's for sure. Now, taking a look at the wholesale market, this is a little bit more competitive. Our opponents are doing all sorts of crazy things. Company E, for example, is selling his shoes for really, really cheap. So basically, he's butting out Company B and Company G right off the bat because, I mean, they have the same quality shoe, but he's selling it for $12 cheaper per pair of shoe. But he does not focus on advertising almost at all. Like, he does not use advertising to maintain his share, and nor does he spend much money on retailer support. So basically, he's cutting costs where he can, but he's selling a cheap shoe for a cheap price. And that's working pretty well for him, though, overall. I mean, if we see, he's got 20% of the market share with those prices. Which is pretty close to us with our 20.5. So it's kind of scary that he's spending a fraction of the amount of money that we're, well, not really a fraction, really. I mean, he's spending, well, yeah, it's still a fraction. He's spending basically 33 to 40% less on his shoes, maybe even half the amount to create these shoes than we are. And he's still selling almost about the same. But again, he's selling them at almost half the price. So if we kind of comparing the two, these are probably the main dominators of the market. However, Company F is also doing some pretty nasty things herself. She's selling her shoes at $45 with an SQ rating of 7. She's kind of meeting the middle ground. Like, she still has a really good quality shoe. She's spending less on advertising than me, but she's spending more than this guy and still making a better quality shoe. So she's kind of meeting somewhere in the middle ground, and she's fallen a little bit on the wayside because of that. But I imagine if she tweaks a couple of these numbers, she'll probably grab herself a pretty dominating share as well. The next closest competitor would be Company C, who has a 14.2% market share, and again has kind of a different strategy. They're charging more for even my shoes, but they're advertising almost as much as me, and the rating of their shoe is okay. Like, I mean, it's still kind of a cheap shoe that they're selling for pretty expensive prices. A lot of the other people are not doing so well. I would actually recommend, if they're going to keep the quality of their shoe this low, they need to tank the price. Truly, they need to bring it all the way down. Somewhat like what Company E is doing here. They should make E work for their money. But at the same time, if they do that, then that will force us to change the strategy of how we provide our shoes. Maybe we need to decrease the quality of our shoes. possibly. We did take full control of the North American market pretty much. We sold 41.5% of the total shoes, but not because of doing anything in specifically special. Truly what it was the other 2 pairs of shoes that were cheaper sold out, and we provided the rest of the shoes needed. We were selling them at a $37 price, but we probably brought the bid down lower. I'm not going to say if I did or not, because again, I don't want my opponents, if they watch these, to actually see that. But more than likely, it would be smart if the person D here, so me, would bring his prices down to at least match company F here, who is taking that bit of the market share. So that's one thing to keep in mind. So if we're taking a look at that, the internet segment, we can see more specifically where we stand. Again, we stand on the high few area, and we have a lot of strengths and very few weaknesses. Overall, we own a pretty dominating share. But again, in the wholesale segment, we can see that E is putting up a hell of a fight. And that's kind of scary to see what he will do in the future. Especially considering he's basically doing almost as well as we are. But the question becomes, does he have the industrial capacity to make up the rest of those numbers? And right now, I don't think he does. Now, I do think that some industrial capacity has been purchased. If we go to purchase capacity, we can see that F bought all the capacity that was sold for this year. She was pretty quick about that. I mean, she bought up 1,100 of it in the middle of class. I was kind of mad about that because I was like, damn it, I was going to buy some of that. So she bought up the capacity that could be purchased in the middle of class while I was giving a presentation. Sneaky, but I guess that's how we succeed in these games, right? So going back to the market snapshot, let's also compare how we did in Europe, Africa. So Europe, Africa, I'll go through this one a bit quicker. Again, we own an absolutely dominating share in Europe, Africa. Like, truly, nobody's really competing with us here. No one's providing the amount of shoes that we're selling on the online market. We dominated it. There's no other way to put it. 32.5%. We sell our shoes for cheaper. Truly, we could raise the prices on our shoes, but I'd rather keep them where they are and just maintain the share I've got now. The wholesale segment, once again, we still dominate a pretty large amount of it, but our competitors are hot on our heels. The closest being C, selling the little bit better quality of shoe, better advertising here, and basically having a much larger share of the market than our other competitors. Right behind C is E. Once again, E is going for the low cost strategy, low price, low cost, low quality shoe that is selling really well. He's not focusing on advertising. He's not focusing on making a bunch of models, so on. Such as, Company C, you can see she's actually doing almost 500 pairs of shoes, which is crazy. That's a lot of shoes. And so that must mean her costs to produce are astronomical. So yeah, I don't know if I would do that. Again, our shoes are high quality, so we own the dominating share, but we sell them for a pretty good price, a very strong competitive price at $52. The third highest in this wholesale segment, but again, we're still selling the most because of between our advertising quality and low price. I mean, it's an almost unbeatable deal. It's a really damn good deal. So that's what people are focusing on. We're pretty much the only one who sold anything in this segment. B put in their bid, but the quality of their shoe was too low. It was a minimum of 5, so they didn't sell anything at all. And the same goes with G. G didn't sell anything at all either because the SQ rating was a minimum of 5. We met that minimum requirement at a 6, and we completely sold all the shoes we offered up on the market. Even then, demand was not met in this segment, so that's something else to keep in mind. There's parts of the market that are just the demand's not being completely met because people aren't even competing in it. Only 3 people competed in the private label segment, and you can see that. I mean, if more people were throwing in their bid, there's a strong possibility that they would have made a lot more money on it. So if we go into Asia Pacific, once again, dominating share of the internet market, same thing all around. That's not really changing. The wholesale segment, We can see, once again, we did not have a dominating share in Asia Pacific. Again, this is probably where E is the strongest. They have the most capacity in Asia aside from us, and they take full advantage of that to sell their shoes for really cheap, and with even less advertising and so on and so forth. It's working out pretty well for them, but the biggest problem I feel like he has here is he just doesn't have a very strong presence overall because of his lack of advertising, his lack of celebrity appeal. So I feel like that could affect him. But again, he's going for the low cost, low quality, low price strategy, and it's working. It's definitely working in Asia for him. So it'll be interesting to see if he continues to compete strongly in Asia, or if this is the only market he focuses on. Worst case scenario, we can just take our shoes and sell them somewhere else if we're not dominating this market. Which is entirely possible. We can be more specific rather than being global. We can be a bit more regional. There's nothing wrong with that. But again, we can see that what he's doing is working pretty well. This is where F is strongest, it seems. They have a 14.7% of the share, which is interesting because they're not doing so well in other markets, but they're doing good here. So that's pretty interesting to see. Well, she is doing fine in other markets, but she's definitely doing better there. She's more of a contender in the, no. She's doing pretty good in the North American market. I'm already speaking over myself. So anyway, let's go ahead and take a look at the Latin American market. Latin American market, once again, we own the internet segment. Nothing new there. The wholesale segment, once again, we own this one, but E is hot on our tail. With F coming up right behind him. This is where our strategies are all pretty much still the same, and we're kind of seeing how things are panning out. Again, with the private label segment, there's just areas that literally aren't no one's selling any shoes because they're not meeting the SQ ratings. Some people are just not putting in their bid in the Latin American market at all. Looking at Asia Pacific. Asia Pacific is a scary market to compete in. So, but this is something that was interesting that occurred last year. Our opponent put a much heavier emphasis on the wholesale market and completely left the Asian market. Whereas before, he undercut us here. He undercut us real bad in the Asia Pacific market and made it to where we didn't even sell a majority of our shoes. So it's interesting that he's taking his focus away from the private label segment, and it makes him kind of unpredictable. And I'm specifically talking about Company E, if you didn't remember from the last video. So this makes me wonder, I don't know what he's doing. And that, again, it makes it very unpredictable. If he's trying to be very hardcore competitive on the wholesale segment, then that means there's segments of the private label segment that is just being completely unsold to. People are not buying shoes from there. There's people who are just not getting shoes at all because, again, there's not enough shoes for people to buy. So this opens up an opportunity for us to put a heavier focus on the private label market. We could even raise our prices, arguably speaking, which I'm going to do. I'm going to put it at 34 because we're going to, put it at 35 because we're going to sell the shoes. Like, no one's competing in these two markets here, in the Asian Pacific market and the Latin American market. So we can basically sell the shoes that we are providing. And so on and so forth. It's a little bit more competitive in the other markets, so it almost kind of makes you wonder, should we focus instead, take like some of the shoes that we're selling here, we'll say we sell 250 to North America and sell 600 to the Asia Pacific market. So this sees our earnings per share go up, our return on equity go up, everything pretty much goes up. But we still are probably going to sell the shoes there because who's going to compete? And as long as we are careful about what the bid price is, which the maximum last year was 37.75, we just want to be sure to sell. We want to make sure we actually sell our shoes. So I don't know. Maybe we could decrease the price a bit. We could probably make it like 34, so we don't get outbid in case someone does decide to walk into the market. It brings it down by about 4 or 5 cents, but that's okay. We could even say I'll do 150, and I'll put it into 602. We'll put it into the Latin American. No, that actually makes us lose money. Maybe not. Maybe not. What do I want to do? I guess we'll just put it more into Asian. Yeah, we'll just put it more into the Asian one. Yeah, see, we make more money there. Whatever, that's fine. So, yeah, basically we can do that. No, we got to sell 2 more, 702. And, again, as long as we're careful we should still sell our shoes. And I'll keep it below that. Yeah, we'll do it there. So 1569 will be the earnings per share it's predicting. So yeah, I'm cool with that. But it's interesting. But at the same time, we're taking a risk by even competing in that market at all. Again, I took all my private label out the year before because I didn't want to be undercut. I need to be able to sell my shoes. I don't need shoes sitting up on the stacks and so on. Because what am I going to do with that? Am I going to be able to do anything with it? So yeah, that's the way that is. But at the same time, everything's looking pretty good. I don't think anyone's really going to compete with us much here. I think we're going to sell our shoes just fine, and it's a little bit better to compete in that market than it is this market because everyone's trying to sell their shoes here. So basically, it seems best if we just take our shoes, take some of the extras out of that market, put them into the Asia Pacific market, and see what happens. But who knows? Who knows? Maybe this will work out pretty well for us. Overall, things have been increasing. We've seen our sales increasing. And we've been seeing that we're doing really well, and our company's doing really, really well, which makes me happy. And again, we can kind of see that, like our market share. I mean, our market share is disgusting. Overall, we can still control a large majority of the market. The private label segment, if we're looking at the company analysis, we own, as of year 15, 41.5% in the North American and 100% in Europe, Africa, 100% in Asia Pacific, because again, no one sold shoes there last year, and 100% in the Latin American market. So we're basically like the only person competing in the private label segments. So maybe even it's a better idea to take some of our shoes out of the wholesale and just start selling them into the private label market, because we'd probably make more money from it. Who knows? Who knows? Again, we can sit here and tweak with the numbers a little bit, but overall, things are looking really good for our company, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens come tomorrow when the numbers get updated again. I do want to leave one last thing about the scoreboard. We managed to achieve a perfect score this year with a 120 investor expectation, a 100 investment industry score, and a 110 overall. This is, again, a perfect score, which means that we are one of the number one companies on the leaderboards, the top 100 leaderboards of all the companies in the entire game, which is really cool. There's only like 5 people who ever accomplished that in a given week. And most of the time, those are repeat offenders. It's really hard to get that 110. So we got that 110, and I'm really happy about that. I'm really excited about that. And once again, if we look at our bonus points, we pretty much hit the head right on the nail. The world average of people get within about 5% variance, and we got within 1% variance. We did really bad last week, basically in year 14. We were 6% off, but we hit the nail on the head. Not quite as close as year 13, as you can see, but year 15, we got within 1%. So we're doing really good. We got some bonus points from that. Overall, our company is doing wonderfully. And there's a lot of stuff we could tweak. There's probably some better ways we could commit our money and how we should spend our money. For example, I will mention that we are putting a very heavy strategy on repurchasing stock and paying out dividends to our investors. This is doing a really good job of increasing our earnings per share and our return on equity. But again, we have so much money, we can do that. Like we've paid off most of our loans. We've only got 2 loans left, loan number 4 and loan number 5. So we can basically get away with doing this type stuff and making bank off of it overall. So I'm pretty happy with how everything's going. But anyway, this has been Commissar Bro. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I hope you're enjoying this little series here. I'm a big fan of this game. This is a really fun game, and I'm absolutely enjoying competing against my classmates. And especially as it goes on, it is kind of how I predicted. About once they kind of got more of the hang of things, it was going to be a lot more cutthroat, and it's going to be a lot more interesting. Companies E and F and C are pretty much our biggest competitors, so it's going to be interesting to see what they do. And again, we can see that it's hard to maintain control of these celebrities because everyone's bidding for them and putting increasingly higher bids. So it's going to be kind of scary if we cannot maintain our hold on those celebrities who endorse our shoes. But we'll see. We'll see. Hopefully we can keep doing what we're doing, and hopefully it works out for us. But anyway, this has been CB, and I'll see you next time.